Hi guys, Evan here. Today we're looking at PT29 Game 4. And this is an unbalanced game, so it's not a one-to-one game. And what we have here is too many pieces, more than we have spots. So you're going to have to double and triple some up. Fortunately, they're pretty strict about where those extra game pieces can go. And we just have to deal with some modified blocks to handle it. So for our game pieces, we have 4 girls, G, H, I, and K, and 4 boys, L, N, O, and S, so 8 total pieces, and that's going to be going into a game board with 6 spots. And at this point, we don't really know much about the distribution, so we can't write a distribution chart. It's best to head to the rules and see if we can get more clues about how these pieces are going to go in here, because we know some are going to have to get doubled or even tripled up, 8 into 6. In the rules, we see that I and L have to be together, so that's a boy and a girl, and we just draw that as a modified block, knowing that they're going to be stacked up on top of each other. And together, that's a whole class. You can't have anybody extra with them, which turns out to be very important to the game. So make sure your block just has enough room for I and L. And then P has to be with 2 other people. So again, this time we don't know who's in there, but we can do another modified block that has 2 spaces for where these guys can go. Now we know that Kate is the first female, but not the first student to attend a class. And the really tricky thing to see at this point is, well, I is a girl, right? So we now know Kate has to be before I. I'm going to move this down where we have some more room to work with it. And then, although Kate's the first girl, there has to be some boy in front of her, right? So you might want to have a little blank spot, and we'll signify boy, so we know that that's somebody from our list of boys. And then it might be worth adding a little G thing to say, no, you can't have any G's in front of her. Next, we find out that G has to be after I, so after this block, but before the P block. And then our last rule is that Oscar is sometime after G. So we put O down here, and then it's worth noting in your head the possibility that O could be heading into here as well, right? So I don't necessarily want that O to land in the block yet, because that could be visually confusing. But this little line reminds me that there's this possibility that O could be in here. And, you know, this is one of these rules where you just have to improvise, but the uglier and louder this is, it'll give you a visual reminder that, okay, maybe O can go in with that P, or maybe it can be separate. We just don't know yet. It's worth noting at this point that things aren't going to be able to move around a whole lot in this order. This is 1 spot right here. This is 2, 3, 4. So that covers 4 spots already. And then O and P make up the last 2 options. They could be separate, or maybe they could be together. We just don't know. Generally, it's just good to pay attention to the fact that there's not a whole lot of flexibility in this order. Are there any further inferences we can make? Well, we know a boy has to be the earliest, right? And then P and O are stuck back here. So we can determine that the only remaining guys that we can have up front are Nate and Saul. So NS go in first. There are a whole lot of restrictions we could write down here. Like, take, for example, K, right? The latest K could go is the 3 spot, right? Because you have to have the ILG and then, like, the PO block before, right? This would be, like, the latest you could get K. So K could be here or here. We could write all that stuff in, but in this case, I think it's easier to just work with this nice chart that we have and not worry about placing in all these restrictions ahead of time. I think it may actually save time. For beginners, I think it would be a good exercise here to draw out your restrictions. So say K can't go here, K can't go here, etc., etc. Just be aware that in a time situation where you have something that gives you this good a guide to the order, you might be better off just forgoing the restrictions. So I'm going to do that and head straight to the questions. So for the first question, we have to figure out which one of these students could attend the first class. And this is super easy if you caught the NS inference already. The only people on this list of N and S is S right here. So that's our correct answer. If you hadn't have seen that, you can go through these one by one and say, well, H can't be first, right, because Kate's the first girl. L has to be with IL. We know Kate's in front of them, so that's gone. O is way at the back, same with P, right? So you could have done that by elimination. Little shortcut, though, was to see the NS inference that we made during the setup phase of the game. The next question asks us where G can go. So, like we talked about before, there's a lot of restrictions that you can make for any one of these pieces by virtue of how many pieces have to be in front of it. So G, we know that there's 1, 2, 3 spaces at least in front of G, so you can kick G out of these first 3 spots, right? And then even if P and O are together, the latest we can get G is here, right? So then we'd have that PO block in behind it, and G's in 5th. And I think an experienced test taker is going to quickly see that, okay, there's no reason why G can't be in 4 or 5. You can also proceed by elimination here. We know 6 is out, we know 2's out, 6 is out, 2's out. So that might be the fastest and most reliable way to do it. Certainly better than checking whether 4 and 5 work by developing a whole order like that. So, little time-saving tip there. Switching to elimination mode to confirm the correct answer may be faster than doing orders to confirm it. 3 is asking us who can get in this block with Pedro, who can be in this modified block where we have 3 people in this one class with Pedro. So I think the easiest thing to do is work by elimination. We know G has to be in front, so that's gone, right? Holly and Saul, I can't see any reason right away why that wouldn't work, so I'm not going to eliminate it or mark it as the correct answer yet. I'm going to see if we can eliminate the rest of these. K is definitely before the P block, so that's not going to work. Same with L. N and S is a bit trickier. Well, if you made this inference up front, you're going to see that, okay, we can't have both N or S in there because then there's no boy left to go in the first block. If you hadn't seen that, you might have to try out an order, and then you'll realize that this has to be eliminated because you'll have no guys left to go in the first spot in front of Kate where they have to be. So we're left with HS as the correct answer by elimination. Alright, for the 4th question in the game, which by the way is problem number 23, we're told that O and P do not attend the same class as each other. So I'm just going to work in our main diagram, even though normally we wouldn't do that, but we're getting down to the last questions. So now we know that P and O are separate, right? So they're taking up both 5 and 6, and that's a given because there has to be at least 4 spots in front of them occupied by these 4 items down here. So you can just fill that stuff in if you want. G, I, L, then we know Kate is here, then N or S is here. And we don't know which one of these is going to be the big class with Pedro and which will just be Oscar by itself yet. But at this point, I'd be looking to see if we can solve this problem. So what could be true? G 5th? No, G stuck in 4. H 3? No, because that has to be I and L. That's a complete class, remember. I 4, no, I stuck in 3. N 5, yeah, that looks like it could be possible, right? Make this one just S and move N over here with the P block, right? That would get rid of O there, and we'd have O there. So a bit messy, but everything works there. You might want to confirm it by elimination. S2, no, that's not possible because Kate's by herself in 2. Okay, the last question is a bit tricky, and it's been not too hard up to this point, so that's not terribly surprising. And what we get is a rule suspension and then a new rule coming in. So we get rid of this O after G thing, right? And have it so, in fact, G is after O, and O is before Kate. And then you still have to draw this little part of the order that all these rules are still in effect, right? With K before I and L, and then I and L before G. The P block still has to be over here, right? And then you have to have some boy in before Kate. So we just have a modified diagram with this rule changed. And then the question's asking us, which class must Holly attend? Well, okay, this is Nate and Saul, Nate or Saul over here, right? We can get rid of that being a boy. The only place Holly can go is stuck in here in the P block, right? And where's that going to be forced to be? You can check how many items have to be in front of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to force it into the 6th spot. So we know Holly's in the 6th spot. Tricky question, but if you keep your head and draw a fresh chain showing you where things have to go, you'll be in good shape. Okay, that's the game. Catch you on the next one.